I'm starting the day off today groggily heading around Mount Ajo, looking for Quercus ajoensis. Somewhere around here, we'll find the mysterious Ajo Mountain oak. A friend of mine told me that he didn't think it was a real taxon until he actually got out here and saw it and recognized right here at Ajo Mountain how different it is. No oaks yet this morning. The sun's coming up and it's already getting warm. I'm in kind of a protected, I'm in the shadow of Ajo Mountain. Saguaro cacti, jojoba, all kinds of kind of blue-gray leaved plants, which is true of the oak that we're hunting for as well. Let's go see if we can find this thing. It really is a beautiful hike, and look at the cacti in bloom. One thing I'll point out in case you don't know, relatively small flowers for the cactus family, especially on a plant that big. And they're white. They are pollinated at night. I saw all kinds of stuff flying around out here at night. So, bad city. Quite the habitat machines. Although it's not a true tree, look at how cool. What a rare phenomenon to be checking out bark on a cactus just after sunrise. Buckthorn cholla, and they're also blooming. I wasn't sure what to expect as far as phenology of things out here. It's late August, deep summer, but in this part of the world, sometimes there's this freshness that comes with the summer monsoons. Oh, maybe I should watch where I'm walking with all of these grabby acacias around. Beautiful geological formations. Something that I wish that I knew more about, considering how importantly it underpins the what is where, the why part of what is where, which is the regime that I really enjoy musing about and actually really studying. Lots of birds. Come out wherever you are, Quercus. It's kind of a crazy thing that I'm doing. I just threw a bunch of stuff in my truck, drove out to the middle of nowhere, middle of the desert, deep summer, looking for weird oaks. It's really something that for some reason is extracted from me in a way. It's almost like I'm driven by who knows what. And I'll admit that sitting in my truck for hours to get in a good hike is exhausting. But there's something about being in spaces like this. Nobody except for vultures kind of eyeing me disinterestedly, but it's glorious. And I see patches of bigger shrubs that look like they're in sort of these drain flows. I don't even remember what I wanted to say here, excepting that, you know, what a special form of insanity that I get to participate in. That moment when you're pretty sure you see your target species, but they're half a mile of prickly cross-country bushwhacking away. I guess I'll just stay on the trail. Sometimes I forget that trails exist, and I thought I might just be kind of trekking through washy canyon bottoms. This is actually a nice trail. As nice as looking at stairs made out of stone can be. There is whatever there is. It looks like we're headed that way by the trail. What a cool and not a given cool feature of this hike, that it looks like the trail actually gets really close to the plants that I'm trying to find. Really close to the plants that are the reason that I came out here. Sometimes it's good to stop talking and listen. I just saw a whole group of javelina. I wonder if they eat the acorns. I really do think that Arizona is underappreciated as a hiking botanist recreation area, if that is the thing at all. The first time that I ever came to do this kind of work in a place like this, I've never actually been here before, but in 2019 I got recruited by a friend who works for the Huntington Botanical Garden, an amazing institution, to join an expedition that was focused on surveying, but primarily collecting from native walnuts. Brooklyn's major being the kind of ideal focus of the project, but just like oaks, that group is a taxonomically messy, wind-pollinated, nut, if you want to give it an acorn that designation, nut-producing tree. These, for whatever reason, over the years since then, have turned into kind of my favorites, which is odd. There's some mix between the sort of ethnobotanic generosity of these plants Walnuts, for example, just incredible how much they offer to us with the wood, the fruit, the tannins, the habitat for other things that we need in our world too. So that project was my introduction to kind of the backcountry of Arizona. For a Californian like me, culturally this place is supposed to be terrifying. And the border elements are unfortunately similar in San Diego. Militarized border, ridiculous money going into infrastructure that is of unclear benefit to anybody, except for the contractors and people who are, you know, monetarily tied to that industrial system. I did have breakfast during that trip at one point in some little kind of homespun diner, and plenty of guns on hips in Arizona from what I've experienced. But that's true in parts of Oregon as well, maybe a bit more rifle-y. Anyway, my intention, this is a radical tangent, of course, nothing to do with this hike or landscape, but come to Arizona. At least the backcountry parts of it. It's gorgeous. Ooh, check that out. Check that out. It looks like we're getting close. From here, well, from back there at least, from wherever I can see this, okay, to my eye, it looks like there are at least 2 different species of large shrubs making up that plant matrix. The limier green, lighter green, kind of almost, it's not really a warmer green, it's more of a yellow green rather than this subtle kind of bluish glaucous green. That's probably not an oak. Alright, I'll fill you in when we get closer. There comes a time in every botanist's hike where the trail, which in this case goes that direction and up toward bull pasture, no longer serves the needs of the botanist, and the oaks, or whatever the hell they are, those shrubs that are intriguing to me from a distance, are now off trail, which is where we're headed. I feel like maybe I picked a good field to study, given that it pushes me into places like this. Okay, now we're working. Oh. Prickly. Oh, getting well acquainted with the desert scrub. Here's the thing. No matter what you're doing, if it's something in science, as far as I know, which I don't know anything, but according to the little that I've learned, observation is at the root of it all, and noted observation. So we're headed there. Can't tell from here still what anything is, but whatever it is probably the same as whatever that stuff is. Those patches of kind of bouldery, big green shrubs. And then, assuming that that's Quercus ajoensis, which I'm not sure about, we gotta get to something first. But if so, it begs the question then of why so few and why it's such a narrow physical range. There's these weird accounts of hybrids between this species and Quercus turbinella, or I should say between Quercus ajoensis and Quercus turbinella, because I don't know yet that what I'm looking at is Quercus ajoensis. But there are such hybrids documented even through physical vouchers all the way at least into Mexico, and perhaps it gets to be really murky because historically Quercus ajoensis was not regarded as a true species by many, and instead was relegated to a variety status for Quercus turbinella. Gotta pick my footing a little bit here. Ooh, even the thistles. Fun. So, alright, getting a bit sweaty, but mainly trying not to get stabbed too badly. Oof. So look at, we're getting closer yet, but why? Why would there be so few and in such a small geographic space? Are they geologic relic? Like a climate refugee, essentially? Maybe their reproductive strategy has kind of gone haywire and they're either not producing enough viable acorns, or those acorns are not successfully establishing, naturally recruiting as seedlings, saplings, and then, you know, future generation adults. Let's go see what it is. I can muse all day about why, what is, but first you gotta know what is. I keep thinking, there seem to be kind of semblance, little tiny glimpses of trail, kinda. But then it looks like this, and I think I'm actually following little piggies. I really should have studied this area better before coming out here, and it looks like the trail might allow me to just drop down into this space rather than bushwhacking my way through an acacia forest up to it. Whatever. I am here in this beautiful canyon, and there is a shift. There's a juniper newly. We have this really interesting open kind of jojoba scrub. I'm feeling a little uncertain though. Looking in there, hard to say from here yet what is good. I'm gonna look around a little bit more. There are some mysterious things in here. But more and more it's looking like I may have climbed up this drainage just for the experience of it. And I actually may need to go up that way and around the top, dropping down into the next drainage over. This is why it's important to appreciate the beauty of the space and the experience as well, because I've been working like 10-hour days doing research and admittedly didn't put as much homework into this and homework on top of the research work. So I'm kind of doing this by the seat of my pants, and it can amount to a bit of frustration. Still got a lot of hours in the day though. Oh, ruggedly beautiful out here. Well, it's not easy, but we're making some headway. Talus all day. Looks like somebody got a bit peckish hanging out in the shade, which I am grateful for at the moment. If I see mistletoe, those could just be acacia. I was gonna say, if those bluish shrubs down there are oaks, I'm gonna be a little bit upset with myself, because that's just around the bend from where I already was. This may be where I have to climb down. Don't think I trust that these cool shelves, these like almost hanging garden areas, I don't trust them being navigable by myself without any useful equipment. It's all whoa, how about that morning light? I feel like I've been up and out here all day already. This place is cool. I hope the color of the lichen on these rocks comes through on the video. There must be moisture that moves right here, because a lot of what I'm seeing is, I think, dormant selaginella. There's a subtle ecotone shift here, or plant community shift at least. And if I'm not totally out of sequence here, behind this ridge is where we should hope to find our target plants. The herbaceous stuff is matted down here. I'm actually following some kind of animal trail. Whew. Now we're in the sun. Now it's really starting to look like I should have taken the lower route. If this is all cliff, I'll have to backtrack. Lots of good hiking today. There's There's definitely some big bluish stuff down there, but I can't tell what is what from here. Where to climb down? I am adding up the miles today. Looks like I gotta go back over that ridge and then down. This looks sketchy. It's sort of like being a human following a game trail on rocky cliffs is not a great recipe. Maybe don't do that. Here I am at the edge of another cliff, but there are some big blue-leaved individuals down there that actually look like they could be oaks. I climbed the mountain and the oaks are down there. Okay, this is looking promising now. Those look like big, beautiful oaks. I kind of had my eye tuned to small, scrubby stuff. And this may be helpful in terms of being able to distinguish between ajoensis and turbinella. And I'm wondering if the kind of purity of ajoensis in this area, I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that I don't see Quercus turbinella or other white oaks in this area, and it's fairly secluded by all of the mountain ridgelines around me. So maybe in Baja, anything that looks really truly arborescent could potentially be Quercus ajoensis if all of the other characteristics line up. I think that this is, let's see if I can walk and talk. It's a little bit hazardous still, but I'm getting down there. I should have just stayed down in the riparian kind of washes. Riparian might actually be too generous in terms of how much moisture they experience, but the washes, I thought, because I've been doing research on this species in, all right, I gotta pay attention, I'm gonna eat it. Oof. All right, I've been researching this species as it relates to Baja, and down there it's reported from a bit of elevation, and here it's down in the wash. So I just got too ahead of myself and basically climbed this sub-peak kind of toward bull pasture, if that's even a fair way to put it. Ooh. Gotta go around again. So all of this climbing is not necessary. Sometimes the most beauty comes from things that are not necessary. Okay, I'm gonna put the camera away for a minute and try not to die. Down climbing, here's a good lesson. look at where you're putting your hands and your feet. I almost just grabbed this cute little cactus. Oh, maybe ow. Why so mean? Maybe I was about to speak too soon and say that it appears that I'm on stable ground again. Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Now that it's 8:15 in the morning and I already climbed a mountain for no reason, let's go look at some oaks, shall we? No wonder that seemed like it would be difficult to climb down. Here we continue to descend into the depths of Estes Canyon beneath Mount Ajo. Well, this has been quite a wild goose chase because I thought that I had started in the wrong direction, second guessed myself as far as knowing where I was going, changed course, ended up that that was not the correct move. And so at this stage, way up there around the bend in this deep drainage below Mount Ajo, that's where we're gonna find these oaks. I was previously up there headed that direction, so we're headed toward the same area that I was headed toward from a different vantage, and that's all there's to it. What a beautiful area. I started down and around. Came first up there and then down here. And that's the course. Oh man, after a good day of it's only been a couple of hours. All right, after a good morning of some strenuous hiking, it looks like I may be coming up on our first Quercus ajoensis. Can you see it in there? This would be the southwesternmost plant of the species as we know it. That one. And that's assuming that stuff in Baja is somehow different. First, I'm going to go check out what this even is here, and we'll take steps from there to figure out whether or not there's anything in Baja that resembles this behind me, presuming that I've actually found what I'm looking for. Oops, I didn't mean to turn the camera on, but here's a taste of the hiking. Hell yeah. Definitely ajoensis. It jumps out at you in the landscape. Way different than turbinella. And Tim Tebow told me that he didn't think that this was a real taxon until he came here and saw them here. And I will second that. This is a very distinct, plant. Look at that gorgeous blueness and the sort of crispate margined leaves. The serrations on the margin point kind of toward the distal end of the leaf rather than being a little bit more like berberis or something. big plant, multi-stemmed, but big. This is probably a 12-foot oak at least, maybe more like 15. So this could be a specimen that's about as big as they get. Let's get closer to the leaves. If I can do that without hurting myself. Interesting. Ow. Okay. They are sharp. It's papery. It's like, it's thin. It's not leathery. Like, these leaves feel, they look in good condition, but they feel of a desiccated individual if it was other. Ooh, look at that. I just wipe off that glaucus. So, thick waxy cuticle on a thin leaf. Thin leaf, thick waxy cuticle. Some of the leaves are definitely more wide and ovate relative to their length than you'd see from Turbinella. I'm curious to look at this under some magnification. It doesn't seem that there's any immediate new growth on these trees. Or this tree. I've only found this one so far. I don't see any acorns. It may be that we need to find some that are not quite so lonely. This is such a cool tree. Ooh, acorns on a long pedicel? Huh. It looks like this flowered recently, and there's some... Are the acorns that small? I see a couple of caps. Just aesthetically, it reminds me of a giant blue glabrous Quercus palmeri. Almost like if Quercus palmeri and Quercus oblongifolia had a baby, even though theoretically those two sections wouldn't hybridize. And that's not what I'm suggesting is the case here. Just in terms of the physical and visual kind of vibe that this plant creates. It has much longer leaves than Quercus turbinella would, and they have this gnarled, I guess you'd say, crispate surface or margin. That's part of where it gets that palmeri vibe. True blue. One of the things that's different about this, it seems, is that the acorns, I only see either immature ones or old caps that appear to be aborted. But they're on long pedicels. It's pretty weird. The caps that are here are so small, though. I couldn't believe, there's no way that the acorns at full viable maturity are that small. I wonder if it has trichomes. Wow. just like absolutely glabrous. You can see the texture of the veination pattern, and then what looks like, I've referred to this as kind of these little bubbly glandular looking features in the past, but in this case it seems that what I'm looking at there is actually the texture of the waxy cuticle. Bluish, arborescent, even though this one is multi-stemmed, it doesn't look exactly scrubby. Big blue leaves, yellow mid-vein, completely absent of stellate trichomes. Let me check the top of the leaf too, just to be sure about that. Yeah, just sort of a rich, waxy look to this bluish leaf surface. This may be the most glabrous and glaucous, pokey white oak of them all, in this region at least. Southwestern US, northern Baja. I don't know why this should be a struggle to differentiate from Quercus turbinella. In my mind, if we go down to Baja and we're seeing plants that are very like whippy in their growth habit, like truly a scrubby oak, that's a questionable situation. Although being that far south relative to here, it could be that environmental conditions push that as more of a phenotypic habit. The leaves in some cases are pretty small and a little bit more like triangular in their shape like you'd see in turbinella, but at least on this plant there are leaves throughout that would throw it outside of the kind of accepted morphometric range of leaf features, leaf size features for Quercus turbinella. The leaves are wider in addition to being longer, which means that they're just generally bigger. That crispate, they just feel a very specific way. This feels like a preserved leaf, as though it's been put on silica or something like that. And it is summer. Maybe the monsoons haven't been that good in this area this year, but I see this. The veins are pronounced. The leaf mesophyll area is so thin for a southwestern oak. Is that a maladaptive quality at this point? I've wondered if trichomes have anything to do with mitigating moisture loss through stomata. And that's a crazy theory at this point, but if that was somehow to carry weight, carry water, whatever, then not having them would put a plant facing increasingly droughty situations, increasingly arid climate at risk, right? There are some immature acorns. It looks like this tree may have flowered just this summer. Let's go see what the other ones look like. Yeah, even the leaf duff, it's light, it's not substantial. White scrub oaks, it would hurt me to do this. And these leaves are sharp, but they have a paperiness. Looking for acorn signs, acorn caps. I wonder how old this thing is. What a cool tree. Alright, we should keep moving. Wow. If that isn't an amazing oak. Oh, and the shade is nice. What a beauty. At the very deep end of this canyon, there's a lot of Quercus ajoensis, and they're gorgeous plants. I'm not totally sure that I have found any mature acorns yet, but if you look, this size, which is pretty small for an acorn cap, seems to be about as big as any of them that I'm finding either on or off of the plants. And see that long appendage that I'm holding that attached this cap to the tree previously? That's a very distinct characteristic. That's about the biggest cap that I've seen so far, which is pretty small. And some of these plants are looking a little stressed out, and one of the things that I haven't mentioned yet is these distinctive galls, and who knows what is forming them, but in some cases leaf galls like this can actually help you figure out what kind of oak you're looking at. Usually they're made by little wasps that have a very specific relationship with their host, and so it may be that whatever causes this gall formation is actually in a mutualistic exclusive relationship with this species. I don't know that yet, but it's an interesting thing to pay attention to and keep an eye out for patterns. The hiking really hasn't gotten any easier, and at this stage I'm feeling kind of committed to going up and then around on the shoulder, but behind me it's a cliff. So it looks like what I need to do, go back down before going up the other side. It's never simple. Not the way that I do it. This morning I started way down and around, pretty much on the opposite side of this ridge line. And now this was my kind of trail, so to speak. And I'm just about to the upper limits of Estes Canyon. Moving away from the oaks at this point. There really aren't that many. It is a beautiful area out here. The hiking that I have put myself through is strenuous, and navigation is not my strongest suit. So in some cases, in several cases, I've gone up and then realized that I had to go down in order to be at a different going up point. And there's pluses and minuses to all of it. I'm gonna be burned out by the time that I get out of here, but at the same time, if there were opportunities to find any other sort of new to science discoveries in the plant world out here, one of the best ways to do that is to first know what you're looking at generally, so that you can know when something is other than that, but to take courses that are different than the kind of well-trodden path, even though there is no such thing as that out here. I know I'm following in the footsteps of John Weens, at least, probably most recently, but I'm not presuming that I'm gonna find any new stuff out here. I just wanted to have a bit more personal confidence when it comes to approaching oaks and knowing enough to determine whether or not they may be Quercus ajoensis, which I have newly met today. So all of the huffing and puffing, all of the sweating, and I guess even the driving, it's worth it for me. This is how I learn, and I don't know why I like this, but here I am. Too steep and scrambly to do much camera work. What a beautiful day. Almost to the top. I'm back on the actual trail and finally made it around to looking at the same plants that I first bushwhacked toward from the other side. They still kind of look like they could have been what I was looking for, although they're not, and I'm glad that I found the real thing. I guess this is it for me and Ajo Mountain for now. I would suggest that if you want to come out here and just experience these trees in this canyon, the easiest way to get to them without going all the way up and around like I did, or going all the way up the official trail and then down from the top of the drainage, the Estes Canyon, but that would also be tough. The landscape is just very steep, and there's a lot of cliffs, a lot of big escarpments. And so anyway, the easiest course if you wanted to come and see the trees that I was just looking at is to take the Estes Canyon trail from the Bull Meadow trailhead, and as the trail starts to swing right and uphill, stick with the main drainage. And I don't know how you could get there without doing a little bit of bushwhacking. There's not a trail in that zone that I saw. But the trees start near the bottom of that finger drainage and actually go up almost to the top. There's one plant that's actually along the official trail. It's up slope from everything else, actually not that far from where I originally set off trail, but it's not the most amazing, not the most stately. I don't mean to be pejorative to that little tenacious individual, but in the drainage within the kind of seasonal wet area, there's some big beautiful trees, and the one that I saw that's actually along a trail is a little scrubby shrub, which is also interesting to see because it may be that that's more like what we'll see in Baja. Some of the notes that I read suggested that there were relatively large trees down there. I mean, you know, relative being the important word there. And such is true of most of what I see here also. So it may be that Quercus ajoensis is a bit more of a true small tree than I might have suspected initially, which is cool. They are amazing plants. I hope people grow more of them because it doesn't seem like there are many in their natural habitat. Oh, and to finish that thought, you might have to kind of off-trail it a bit up that drainage until you start to see notable blue oaks. They just, oof, they jump out of the landscape. And once you've had your fill, turn around and go back down that drainage. Going up it was an adventure, and that's part of what I'm out here for. But it's tough.